G'day homesteaders. Let me just walk through here. All right. Woo. All right. G'day homesteaders. Today I wanted to talk to you about the realities of the Irish garden. Right here in Ballymote, where the missus and I have bought a nice little place on O'Connell Street. You can see the church behind us. You have a quick peruse. It looks like a pretty alright starting point. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's a winter afternoon, so the light might not be ideal. But I just wanted to show you what it's like trying to remove a hedge. You see, right here, the hedges had been so overgrown, they were over 1 metre onto our side and taking away lots and lots of square metres. Hey Pops. And we need to put up a fence anyway, because you can see the dogs walking in and out of the place. He's in the neighbour's yard, he's in the other neighbour's yard. We've already gotten a complaint. We don't want to piss everyone off. I've only been here for 2 months. This hedge apparently, as we've been told, this hedge could be about 200 years old. But the thing about it is that they've been trimming it on one side, on the neighbour's side, and on this side they just let it run wild. So have a look. The neighbours have done a pretty good job. So here we go. They've been trimming it quite well. It's pretty straight and it leaves their door nice and free. I can't say the same on this side. This side's a monstrosity. It's overgrown. It actually, look, you don't even get access to the door because of the hedge. This is what a well-trimmed hedge looks like. Full access to everything in a straight line. And my yard. It's a pain in the ass to get in and out of this garden. So this hedge has to go. I don't care if it's 200 years old. I don't care if it's 500 years old. It's going because it's the square meters that we need to use in our garden. Poppy! 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 The dog seems to be running around. Poppy, come here. Alright, I don't want to doing crazy stuff. Let's see. I'll try to film some of this as best I can. Alright, if you're like me, I like to watch a few YouTube videos and see how things are done properly before I give it a go. I notice some people using power tools and winches and all kinds of stuff to remove their hedges. Removing the hedges isn't the hardest part. Taking the root system out is the hardest part. But I might see if I could just kill the root system in place and then just find some places to put some poles without having to rip up all of these old roots, because I don't really have the, I don't really know what to do with them once I get them all up. Maybe it's easier just let them rot in the ground. We'll see. The first part is just to remove the hedges. We've got 2 sets of tools. These trusty sort of compression hedge trimmers or whatever, I don't know what they are. I think they're called limb trimmers or limb, cutters. And this big ass saw, like Grandpa probably has in his shop. Have a look at the teeth. The big spaces between the teeth means you can cut living things and it doesn't get clogged up. If you use the normal saw, it gets clogged right up. Normal saws prefer to cut dry material. This is for basically anything in the garden. And look at these thick ass hedges. Might as well just get started. They're all intertwined, so you have to yank them apart. Not sure what the best way to film this is. It's kind of a dusty operation. Let's see. I want to show you some of these limbs. I mean, they're not spectacular. Once you get low, you start to see they're pretty substantial. And just one of these branches can have a mighty big bush on it. So, and they're all twisted up over 100 or more years of growing here. Looks like one of those desert bushes that's been molested by the wind. Some pretty thick sections. So what I do is I cut off the really big sections like this, save those for firewood later, let them dry out, and I'm gonna throw the rest into the compost and put cardboard and stuff on top. So with the constant rains here in Ballymote, Sligo, it rains, well, let's just say 80% of the time. I don't mean of each day, I mean 8 out of 10 chances it'll be raining. But it doesn't mean it lasts. It could rain in the morning and be clear like today. It could be clear and then it could start raining in the afternoon. That's not unusual either. Look at these things, they're like trees. Like a tree. Each limb is like a whole tree to itself. That's why there's so much work to be done. And a lot of square meters to be sort of reclaimed. You can see how deep that is. The neighbour's side is nice and trim, as long as it lasts. And our side is just dog's breakfast. I'll film it from this angle for a bit. See if you don't get better light. And to tell you the truth, people don't really look after things as well as you think they do. This whole backyard has been a garbage dump for maybe 100 years or so. And I've found shoes, I've found car parts over here. Don't know if you can see any of it, but there's all kinds of scrap metal and stuff. Remember, this is Ireland. This particular building here, our granary, is around about 300 years old. I'm sure the door isn't, but there's a window down there. I uncovered that the other day. That was a bit of a surprise. And this hedge is the one that's taking away all of our space in our backyard. So let's get to chopping. Hedge chopping, body rocking. Thanks for watching Green Ideas. Alright, let's get busy. Very fertile soil under here, though, I must say. Check this stuff out. It's like living compost. It's got a little bit of everything in it, I guess. Must be alive. But if you looked at it closely enough, it'd probably wriggle. There's a lot of dead plant material too. That's going to go straight on the compost. All of this stuff. Whew. Sometimes you hit one that's like a real tree. This current one's about that big. So I give it a slice on each side, and because I know it's going to take a lot of elbow grease to get all the way through, I'm just going to yank the whole thing over, and it's going to snap under its own weight. Alright, needs a bit more. check this out. The hedge somehow started growing under the fall of where the leaves would be, and see all these roots. The hedge just keeps wanting to grow. It's about 1 meter from the original roots, which means there could be little shoots or saplings of all of these, or along this whole area, which I've got to pay attention to. Look at this, yeah, because you've got to pull it all up. It's the only way it works properly. Everything that's green has to come up. Slow and steady wins the race. You will find all kinds of junk. This is cast iron drain pipe, or at least the gutter pipe. here you can start to see the door. And that's what it's all about. Access to my own garden, for Pete's sake. Alright, let's have a look what's happened. There's just a bunch of stumps in a row. I don't think that they're communal, I think that they're my hedges. I don't care anyway. I already spoke to the neighbours, they said it was fine. I've got to like flatten this backyard. Look at all these hedges I chopped down. Just tons. Well, okay, we're nearly there. I want to film the last section. Operation See Where My Door Is. And remember, that's the access point to my whole garden. If I have trouble getting a wheelbarrow in and out, that's going to be a pain in the ass. If I can't drag sort of big bits of wood or other things like buckets or sacks full of leaves through that doorway, just to get hit by all of these branches when I arrive, it's just not going to work. So that's why I've spoken to the neighbours. Of course you have to do that here in Ireland, or you have a blood feud that goes for generations. Luckily the guys who own this house don't actually live in it, just that one of their parents died, and they're going to probably put it on the market maybe in a year or two. So I've got to clean the place up, put up a very nice wooden fence with very strong moorings, some tubes or buckets in the ground filled with quickset concrete, wooden posts and wooden beams. I just think that looks nicer. I don't mind if these crawlers crawl onto the wood and grow over it. The important thing is that the wood needs to be treated, and it's going to be treated to handle these Irish conditions, which, as I said earlier, are plenty of rain and regularly. Almost there. To tell you the truth, the work isn't too difficult. Just a bit of elbow grease, and maybe the right tools. It's not too technical, that's for sure. I just try to cut as low to the ground as possible, and maybe later I can cut it even lower, or I'm not going to pull these roots out because, like I said, they're 200-year-old plants, as the neighbour reckons. So these roots are going to go thick and deep and cause giant craters if I ever do get them up. So I'd rather that they rot in place. You can usually do that just by cutting an X into the middle of the stump, and the elements will do the rest. Water will sit in there, it'll get waterlogged, die off, and just make sure in spring none of these little sprouts, which I can still see actually, aren't going to take over where this one left off. This is a really problematic hedge because it's so unkempt. There's no way to resurrect this thing. I mean, look at it. It's just a pile of rubbish. Maintenance is what makes a garden. And love. Ow. Alright, now we've got some real scraggly stuff. It's hard to get into, so that's what this comes in handy for. Here's a good example of what a fallen hedge can do. As the hedge grew down, or sort of even maybe slumped down, and more soil and leaves were put on top of the bottom branches, yep, you can see here, they really start to grow into their own plant. If you wanted to, you could cut it off here, and start a new hedge. But I don't really think there's any real benefit of growing a 200-year-old hedge again, unless you're trying to make a bonsai plant. And then you've already got a 200-year-old plant to start with, loving it. Otherwise, these are quite a nuisance if they start growing again. I'm going to make sure that none of this hedge comes back to life this spring. I think we're down to the last meter or so. It's very fulfilling. you can finally see where the original wall used to be. Might not look like a lot, but let me tell you, it's about, I don't know, 30 meters of hedges, at least 20, maybe 30, in my Irish garden. These are the only tools I used: the limb cutter and the good old-fashioned saw, wood saw, and that was pretty decent. Check out the amount of hedges, just how much we're talking about here. Look at that. A mighty amount. What I'm going to do now is just cut the limbs pretty much off the branches, and keep the thickest stuff for firewood and use the thinner stuff for compost. I mean, it might be a year before I can even use that compost, but that's okay. It's no big deal, because here in Ireland it's always raining, and that means the elements are helping you achieve your goals when it comes to making a good compost. Just make sure you've got plenty of material. Alright, so I'm cutting it off as high as I can to capture as many leaves as possible and leave as much of the solid tree as I can. Let's see. Alright. These will be compost, these portions. And this thing without any green on it. This will get cut up and be used as firewood, because it's going to take shitloads of time for that to become compost. A couple years at least. Now let's do it on a bigger scale. There's a lot of work to be done here. These fiddly bits will break down in about a year or so, even if they got leaves on them. Actually, the leaves help it break down quicker, but as you can see here, this is quite a thick one, and this would actually be much better used in the solid wood fire, in the wood burning stove. When it dries, I'll just cut it a few portions, and that'll make good firewood. Even if we have a fire in the backyard for New Year's or something, it should be dry by then. Maybe, probably not. If it is, we'll be having a bonfire out here anyway, maybe not with this wood, with some different wood. The rest of this plant matter all going in the compost. So it's not a bad little project. In about a year or two, I'll have a hell of a lot of nice leaf mulch. Of course, I'll keep adding more stuff to the top of that, including food scraps from inside the house. Hey buddy. Alright, I hope I didn't bore anyone with this video. I don't know how long it's been, maybe about an hour or so of cutting down these hedges. There's a hell of a lot of hedges to deal with. Now I've got to cut them into smaller portions, keep the large sections, throw the leafy parts onto the compost. As you can see, I've really got my work cut out for me. There's a hell of a lot of work to be done. So this is probably going to take the next couple of hours to trim all of these down and throw the leaves into the compost, which I've already started doing. I don't want to bore the hell out of you. Again, this is Green Ideas. My name's John Green, and this is my Irish garden taking shape. At the moment, it looks like my Irish garbage patch. But believe me, within about 6 months to a year, you're going to see some really, really great changes here. And I hope you'll follow me on the channel. Remember, Green Ideas with John Green. And thanks for tuning in. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below if you live in Ireland or have got some tips about working in Irish gardens. I've only ever worked in Australian, Hungarian and Austrian gardens. So having this constant damp, this constant wet, this constant moisture, it takes a little bit of getting used to. So week to week, month to month, you're going to see some different videos from me, and I hope you tune in and see what's to offer. Ooh. There's Green Ideas on YouTube.